Football season is just around the corner, believe it or not. But obviously, with the big interruption in everything, including football, caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, there's questions all around about how players are continuing to develop during this difficult time. And here to talk about that is a guy who knows a little bit of something about developing players. We're joined by Dr. Dutch Franz. He is a psychologist who specializes in sports. Dr. Franz, thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be here.
I want to
see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Last time we were together, you were trying to get me to embarrass myself on the Reps VR virtual reality system. And if I remember correctly, I acquitted myself pretty well
You
to
did
the VR
pretty
system.
well. We didn't embarrass you nearly as much as we were hoping.
Well, there's still time. Don't worry.
Right.
I want to ask you a little bit about the pandemic and its effect on players. Obviously, there's been more or less a halt to practices during this time, but that isn't necessarily going to cut it whenever whether rubber meets the road and we do pick back up. So as far as the effect of the pandemic on what you're seeing in development, what really strikes you as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, this is an interesting and kind of unprecedented time. So in my work as a performance psychologist working with elite athletes in Division I championship programs, right, I routinely see a developmental arc that is supported by science. And in the first 1 to 2 years following the entrance to a higher level of play, so middle school to high school to college, college to pro or to the Olympics, something like that, there's a dramatic developmental advancement in the athlete. And what's happening is the brain is literally building new pathways and reinforcing those high performance pathways through repetition. And this optimizes things like learning, decision making, processing speed, recall, timing, really those building blocks of elite performance.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, one thing, and this is a personal note, I'm actually reading right now Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. And that was a book that kind of made popular the idea, the 10,000 hours, right? You're supposed to have 10,000 hours to truly get mastery of something. And it seems like with something as disruptive, let's say, as the pandemic, that certainly can have an impact on gaining those hours, right?
Yeah, so those 10,000 hours, really what's happening there is that's the time needed to build and reinforce those pathways through a process called myelination. So it's just how the brain adapts and reinforces that performance behavior. And that's really non-negotiable, right? You've got to go through those hard hours and that pain in deep practice, or you won't develop. And unfortunately, the COVID-19 limitations means that athletes in their prime developmental stage, right, where everything in the body's optimized for learning and performance, they won't be getting the repetitions they need to make that giant leap forward that is required to play at the next level, whether that's at the high school or college or pro level, it's all the same. And there's no way around it. And once this developmental window is gone, it's almost impossible for the athlete to recover. And that should be concerning to players, parents, and coaches.
And that's one thing, you mentioned there is that window, but especially when we're talking about high school kids, this is, especially with the way that football is developed, in this country, players are when they're showing up on college campuses, a lot of times they are getting really close to fully polished. And so really, is it fair to say that for these high school kids that are losing these reps, that are losing this practice time, that this can be something that they really need to figure out a way around?
It is, because you're absolutely right. Now, more is expected from those athletes when they show up. And, the transfer portal has kind of made that worse, right? You don't perform, they're going to bring somebody else in that does. And then the kind of the growth of the private training market as well has really accentuated that. And, COVID-19, Twitter's full of videos of kids in their backyard, throwing the ball and doing their footwork. And that's all great. but that only gets you so far. You're going to win games on Friday night with your decision making and how your ball control skills, and those are the things that are super hard to replicate if you're not in practice, and are the things that athletes are losing right now.
We're talking with Dr. Dutch Franz of the performance psychologist here on Texas Football Today. Get involved with the conversation at #TF Today. All right, Doc, I want to ask you about the Reps VR system. And as we mentioned before, I tried this thing out. And it is really remarkable the way that it is able to simulate's not even the word. Like it's a fully immersive system where you are there on the field running reps. Can you tell us a little bit about, especially with the background of the pandemic and losing full team reps, basically? Can you tell us a little bit about this particular system and how valuable it can be?
It really is irreplaceable in the period that we're in right now, and the reason why that is because you're absolutely right. What you experienced at the conference is that it immerses you fully into that practice or game environment and lets you get unlimited amount of reps. In addition to that is, I talked before about that learning arc, and that your brain needs to be challenged in order to develop this process that we call deep learning or deep practice. And that's what you get, right? If you imagine, I remember you were a quarterback, right?
Yes,
in high school.
I was a very, generally speaking, not a good one, but on this day, not bad.
Not bad. So if you remember your freshman or sophomore year, probably you most remember your freshman year, your first time stepping behind center at the high school level, and things just happened so fast, and it was a new language, a new speed. You were nervous about being there. All of those things are the things that help your brain click in and start developing, started that maturation process, that learning process. That's what reps simulates. That's what our VR environment simulates. And it allows, because of the way it's built, it allows you or the coach to constantly create that deep learning environment. And so just as soon as you feel comfortable with a 2-route set, we're going to throw a 3-route set and a 4-route set. And now we're going to change up the defense and we're going to bring blitzers. And as you develop, it gets harder. And so it keeps that deep learning process going. And if you're not getting that in practice, which most schools aren't, there's no other way to get it. I mean, there just isn't.
Yeah, it seems like it's one of those things that you're either doing or you're not. Like it's kind of it's a zero-sum game that you have to have these kinds of reps in order to train. And if you're not getting them, then plain and simple, you're just going to fall behind.
Yeah. And so now if you're a freshman or a sophomore, you're going into those critical playing years of a junior and a senior without that experience. And so you're behind from the get-go, and you're never going to catch up. There's just not enough time.
And Doc, we were talking before we came on the air about you recently got some data from an FBS program here in the state of Texas. We'll leave them anonymous, but you got some data about what they've been doing, and you told me, I literally don't know what you're about to say. You said it was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it really was. So this was, with the Division I program. So these are quarterbacks that have already proven that they can play at a high level. And we put them inside of our system and their task proficiency. So that's how quickly and how accurately could they move through pre-snap and post-snap reads, improved by 63%.
Wow.
A 63% improvement in task proficiency, and decision-making was improved by 60%. So how were they able to go through their pre and post-snap reads and then make the right decision based on what the defense was giving them and the goal of the offensive play. And that's pretty dramatic. And that was in 4 20-minute training sessions.
Wow. That is remarkable. You weren't lying to me. That's pretty amazing. But it just speaks to kind of what you were talking about how it's one of the things that, like, you keep saying the word non-negotiable, and that just stuck in my mind. Like, this isn't something you can replace. This isn't something that you can find a way around. More importantly, you're either just getting these reps or you're not. And it seems like the numbers really bear that out.
It's really true. And I talked to a coach just earlier this week who's using this system. He's implementing it with his athletes, and he's been installing offenses long enough that he knows where the problems are going to occur, where most quarterbacks are going to fall and stumble with the installation. He did that install in reps. They stumbled through it, but they improved, they learned, they went out onto the field and executed at 100%. And so you just saved all that field practice time with everybody there, and those quarterbacks were just burning through it.
And Dr. Franz, you were telling me a little bit earlier that I think we think of this as being coaches are going to buy this for their program, or program's going to buy it for itself. But you were mentioning that this is starting to get even more personal now.
It really is. So one of the things that's happened with the COVID-19 environment is parents are starting to clue in that they're not able to send their kids to camps in the summer. Most of those are closed down. And so they realize, how are their kids going to get the repetitions? How are they going to get this learning if there's nothing available? And so we're starting to get calls from parents, and particularly one that stuck in mind, a great Texas football mom. And talking to her on the phone was like talking to a coach. And she said, we don't know what practice is going to look like. We don't know if we're going to have a full game schedule. And I'm concerned that my son's not going to get the reps. She actually said the word reps that he needs to develop. And so she got a system for her home. And we started, coaching her on how to use it with her son. We have coaches that are available to help him learn within the system. And it was neat. Personally, it was satisfying as a performance psychologist to be able to help an athlete that was looking for a solution that wasn't being provided anywhere else. That was pretty neat.
He's Dr. Dutch Franz. He is a performance psychologist. Check out repsvr.com for more information. Dr. Franz, appreciate your time.
All right. Hey, thank you.